about doing a session. NRMP was probably the last thing that initially that I thought about doing, but when I took TAGME last year, I believe NRP was one of those that I struggled with the most understanding it since we don't use it. Since that's not something that the match program is something that we use in urology. So I felt like I needed extra study time with it and reading it over and over again and all those things. So I thought, at least kind of sharing with you guys when I took it last year, the things that kind of stood out to me when I was reading through it. And of course I know the tests are different every year. So, and last year when I took it, there were two NRMP sections because they forgot part of it. So they had a supplemental section. So when I was taking the test, I had two different sections that I had to refer to during the test. So I think this year they've gotten it based on what I looked like in the study guide. Both sections are together now, so at least that's a good thing. And I did just the slides that I put together are just the things that I remember that kept being repeated during the exam when I took it. A lot of acronyms, a lot of numbers, like the R3 system, and that's why I brought that up. Basically, and I'm not going to read all of this to you guys because Denise, I can send you the slides when we're done, and if you want to send them out. I just wanted, I mean, when I first started, I didn't even really know what NRMP stood for because I've never been around that. So just that it's the National Resident Matching Program, which is, to me, once I got into it, it is really similar to the SAU match. A lot of what they do, they just use different terminology. So they talk about, I mean, we don't have anything now you all correct me if I'm wrong. With the SAU, I don't think we do anything similar to what is like the R3 system, which stands for registration, ranking, and results. That I remember when I was taking the test, they did refer to the R3 system a lot. So I had to, in my mind, understand what is an R3 system? What are they talking about? So I had to keep going over and over and over that kind of thing. Another thing that I do recall being on the exam was the different positions, mainly the categorical and the prelim positions were the ones that they refer to a lot in different questions throughout different scenarios. They would talk about a prelim position, a categorical. So I needed to understand what is this? What are these different ones? And there are other different positions. There's the categorical primary care, the advanced, the reserved. And it's not that you have to know, of course. Are you all taking the test this year? Is anybody taking it, or are you all already certified? Is there anybody that's actually going to take it this year? The the other thing that I thought that I just remember SOAP, the Supplemental Offer and Acceptance Program, because when I worked in internal medicine years ago, I wasn't a coordinator at the time, but I worked with the program director, and I remember the SOAP and how people were rushing around trying to find spots and all those types of things. So just knowing what SOAP stands for and understanding that, that not all unfilled programs have to participate. I mean, like, it's not a requirement. I think most probably do. And I know that our general surgery at UK, they do a lot of SOAP because they never fill all their positions and they end up with a bunch of prelim positions and all those types of things. So I tried to, when I was studying for it, I tried to refer back to just things that I was familiar with that I knew that programs that I had worked in had actually used those things. The main residency match, the main things that stood out to me was that a program they have to be activated to participate. The program has to be activated by an institutional official, which in our case is the DIO, which is probably maybe the case at most places. You have to be registered for the match, of course, and you have to submit a certified rank order list through the R3 system before the ROL certification deadline. And I don't know that we use the word quota in the SUA. The SAU, but the quota is the number of positions a program intends to fill through the match. And each year, the program's responsible for verifying that the quota is correct before the quota change deadline. And I remember the quota change deadline, that terminology was in the test, several different questions. It asked questions regarding the quota change deadline. Like it would be worded, and of course it's been over a year now, so exactly how it was worded I don't remember, but I know that it talked about whether it had to be approved by the program director. No, it has to be approved by the institutional official. Little things like that that I remember sitting there and thinking and overthinking and thinking too much about it. But it was things like that, things that to make sure that it was, that all the changes were made in the R3 system, who approves it. And if you want to make a change after the deadline, you have to put something in writing. You have to demonstrate what the hardship, and it also has to be approved by the NRMP. It's not just an automatic approval if you want to do this after the deadline. And there were several questions as well of who does what. What's the institutional official do? What can the program director do? And what can the program coordinator do? And I think it's really similar to how we do it. Like when we submit the rank list, we can put it in, we just can't certify it. Same thing with the NRMP. They have to, they can do both. They can put it in and certify it, or I don't know how you all do it. When we do it, I put it in, my program director goes through and certifies it and actually submits it. So it's kind of the same thing, but it's just different terminology. And I think that's what I had to get used to. Was I wasn't used to hearing quota change deadline and the R3 system and all these different terms that I just had to get used to thinking it's really the same thing. It's just their terminology was different. The one thing too, the institutional official, they have the authority to modify, and they can certify the rank order list, but they have to do it in collaboration with, in the approval of the program director. So they can't just do it they can't just go in and make changes and all that stuff without the PD actually approving it. So, and like I said, there's a lot to the NRMP. And I'm not going over every little thing, of course, that is in those pages. I was just trying to pick out things that I remember that was covered, that stood out to me, and I don't think I probably said this at the beginning, which I should have. When I took the test last year, I took it. I did not pass it the first time. I missed it by I think you have to have an 80 to pass. I got like a 76, I think. So of course I was kind of mad at myself, thinking, I can't believe I've done this job for 6 years and I can't pass the test. So I took it. I studied about 3 more weeks, took it again. And when the screen popped up at the end, I missed it by 1 question passing. I immediately was like, I'm not taking it again. I'm not, and where I work, we are required to take it if we want to get moved up to a different pay grade level. And we had until this December to take it and pass it. And I said, I got a hold of my GME director, and I'm like, if I'm going to get demoted, I need to think if maybe I need to make a career move, because I'm not going to get demoted. I don't think it shouldn't be up to if we can pass a test, whether we can do our job or not. I thought so she's like, don't make anything hasty. You've done the job, you do it well. We're not going to demote you. Don't get upset. Well, this was in September. So I kind of I was still in the back of my mind thinking, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. In November, I get a letter from whatever the company, what was peer, I forget the testing people that I guess it was the TAGME, but it was the testing people that said, this letter is to inform you that you actually passed the test the first time and the questions were graded incorrectly. So we're reimbursing you for your retake. So I spent 3 or 4 months thinking I was crazy, that I shouldn't be doing this job, and I didn't even need to retest. So I initially passed the first time. They said it was 25 people in the country that this happened to. And I said, of course I'm one of them. But anyway, it made me feel better, sort of, but then I was mad at the same time. I was mad, but then so anyway, just to kind of clarify that, yeah, I had to take it twice. So reading all this, I went through all this twice trying to wrap my hand around. But it does tell you which questions you missed, not which questions, but how many you missed in each section. So that was kind of helpful to me. But and a reversion. This, I don't know if this is anything with when we do our match. I wasn't familiar with what a reversion was. And it means that you can like donate any unfilled positions to another in the event that your program does not fill during the processing of the match. So you can like donate your positions. And it says it's usually done between categorical and prelim programs, traditional and primary care track, and clinical and research tracks. And they have to be approved by anything you do with a reversion has to be approved by your institutional official by the ROL certification deadline. What do you want to do if you want to withdraw from the match? It has to be done before the quota change deadline. The institutional official must confirm the program's withdrawal. If it's after the quota change deadline, a written request that's co-signed by the institutional official and the program director must be submitted to the NRMP. And you have to explain what kind of hardship, what's the, or is there been a loss of funding? You have to go into all kinds of detail if you want to withdraw. And violations, and a lot of the violations are similar to what we see with what we do. Basically, some of the examples, and I remember on the test there were several questions that you had to kind of determine whether it was really a violation or not. And I won't read through all these, but they go through several different, some alleged violations. Like I said, I don't think it's anything a lot different than what we deal with as far as what in our match process. So basically, I just wanted to go through a couple things here, and I'm going to the answers will pop up. And I know, like I said, there was a lot of acronyms in this, and I had to kind of get familiar with all of those. So the SMS stands for Specialty Matching Service, and that's part of the NRMP, but they refer to the SMS a lot when you read the NRMP section, and that is the Specialty Matching Service. And it's said SMS is managed through the NRMP's R3, and R3 stands for Registration, Ranking, and Results. When can an applicant withdraw from SMS? When can they do it? It has to be done prior to the rank order list certification deadline. So they can't do it afterwards. It has to be done prior. Who is responsible for the accuracy of the contact information in the R3 system? And of course, the program is responsible for that. NRMP isn't responsible, it's the program. And what binds the programs and the applicants? What are they bound by? The match participation agreement. And again, I'm assuming the match participation agreement based on, I think there's a copy of that in the study guide, and it just looks, I didn't read it word for word, but it looks a lot. It's a very similar to the agreement that we have seen in what we do. How long do programs give applicants to accept or reject an interview invitation? They get 48 hours from the time that you send it that they have to respond, which I guess is a little bit, it's from what I can tell, it's not, how we have to send out our invites on a particular day and they can't respond until, they have 48 hours, but it's not quite exactly that specific as far as the day that they send them out and those kinds of things. But an ROL, when I refer to that, that's the rank order list. Before the ROL certification deadline or offering through SOAP, the program they have to provide same kind of stuff like we do, a copy of an agreement, and then all of the policies regarding like all the things that we have to give when we send out our invites and invite people to interview and things like that. We have to, it's the same sort of things. It's just different terminology. That's my main point here, is that it's so similar, but the terminology was what kind of would throw me a little bit. Programs are responsible for ensuring the completeness, timeliness, and accuracy of all information provided to applicants. This includes all written, electronic, and verbal information provided to applicants through recruitment, onboarding cycle, and this right here, that through the 45th day following the appointment start date. That 45th day, I remember when I took the test, the 45th day thing popped up, and that's why I included it here only. And it may not now, it may not, they may have, but I just remember the 45th day, and I don't really know why 45 days. I never could figure that part out, but the 45-day thing popped out several times for me. When using program tracks, the identifiers in R3 that include like what kind of position, the clinical and research options, what kind of program focus. Programs must create a separate rank order list for each track. So if you have several different tracks, your rank order list, of course, which is to me kind of a common sense thing, but you can't, like if you got a prelim track, a categorical track, like all those have to be separate. You have to place in each track the predetermined track quota. So if you have a total of like 45 positions, your total can't be more than 25. So if you've got 25 prelim, 20 categorical, so your total can't be more than what your total quota is for each one. What happens if a program closes or there's a reduction in complement? They have to notify the NRMP, of course, in writing, but they have to do it like they can't wait till after the fact to tell people that they're closing. They have to inform people as far in advance as they can. But I don't really have a lot. I just wanted to kind of go over a few things that stood out to me to kind of, and I don't know, like I said, how many are taking the test this year, but I think it will help this year to not have two separate documents to look through like we did last year. Having it as one, I think, is probably a lot better than having two. Although they tell you what section you need to look in when you're taking the test. They tell you refer to pages whatever to whatever when you're looking up things. But anyway, well, that's really all I had, and I hope it was a little helpful anyway. It was just I kind of feel like I think I went to some study sessions last year with INSAMA, I believe, and there was one on NRMP at that point. And to me, it didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time until I got in and started reading it myself. And that's when it made more sense to me. Just hearing people, it didn't click a lot, but I really had to go in and read before it actually made sense to me. So that's what I would encourage everybody to do that's taking it, is just I took months. I started reading it a couple months ahead of time, but like 2 weeks leading into it. And then when I had to retake it, I went through it all again. But it's just, trying to get just so familiar with where things are, just because it's timed. It's just trying to be familiar with everything.
That was excellent. Thank you. It brought back so much for me because I worked, in a specialty that used NRMP, and we had numerous different categories, like you said, and that quota deadline was always something I had in, big letters on my calendar every year.
Yeah, I have a program that's NRMP in addition to this one. So it's, I have to kind of catch myself when I'm doing the other program. Like I had to put in the rank list and, have the program director certify it. And that's, I'm not used to doing NRMP. So I have to pay attention a little bit closely to that one.
Is anybody who's on the call taking the exam this year or has taken the exam?
Hey, didn't they, am I wrong about, I remember something coming out a while back that said, once you've taken it, the recertification, you only have to do that once after the initial, like when I have to recertify in 5 years. So that means that once I recertify once, I don't have to recertify again. Is that, is that,
I do believe that is true. I have recertified 3 times, so I'm
so,
done.
so you're done, but you
I
don't have to
hope
do it. You shouldn't have to do it again.
I, I
Okay.
have done it on paper where I had to travel like 4 hours away to take a paper test. Then I did it one time here, but somebody who was TAGME certified had to sit in the room with me when I took it on a computer. And then another time it was something that I was able to do on the computer on a like a Word document that I sent back to somebody, and it was in 2 parts. And then I did the one that you did, Stephanie, where it was
Now, no, this year, I think here anyway, well, I guess everywhere, we've had some people that actually went to a testing center.
okay.
Like an option this year, you could do it online and
Okay.
honestly, when I have to recertify, if there's an option to go in person, I will probably, because I did not, I did not, it, to me, I got stressed out over the proctoring more than probably the test itself. So I will probably go in person when I have to recertify. But now, it's the recertification, you can retake that, can't you, if you don't pass the recert? Like, it's not just a one-time thing, right?
I think so.
I
Yeah.
hope so. I'm a
And it's
terrible
it's
taker.
fewer it's fewer questions too, I believe. All right, I'm gonna shut off the recording and then we can talk about